Welcome everybody. I'm so excited that you are here. I have like an amazing interview ahead with who I consider my friend. She's a colleague. We've written books together, Michelle Hoffmann. So, hi, Michelle.
Hi, Pat. Thanks so much for having me here. I've loved working with you in so many different capacities.
Oh yes, we started way back, and then because we were both kind of in the grief space, and yours was a little bit different than mine, but that's where we all started from, and now we're kind of going in all different trajectories, which is really cool because we take all that we have. But let me tell you all about Michelle, okay? The engagement whisperer. Oh, but you'll know that she doesn't whisper a lot. What tell you about her. She doesn't whisper a lot.
Giving myself a goal to be calm and tone, and you called me out, so I'm going to let that go.
Hey, I love it because you energize me. So she is known for employee engagement of 120%, increased client base 200%, flawless change management, and 10 times return on investment in any economy. Wow. I mean, I was a corporate executive for many, many years. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
So Michelle is the CEO of Light the Spark Management Consulting and is the international best-selling author of Life Worth Living. Number one, that's her first book, Life Worth Living, and The New Management Blueprint. She is an innovative, strategic corporate consultant with a proven expertise in management and development in diverse industries and in evolving environments. She helps businesses develop high-performing teams. You can't help but be high-performing and just engage with Michelle, and you'll see that shortly. And she helps these teams to exceed their revenue goals, making success inevitable. It's just going to happen. So I'm going to have all of her contact information in the body when we get all of this out to our media platforms. But what sets her apart is her ability to light the spark, to up-level management who lead confidently and adapt to change with the competence to create value and the opportunities change creates. Her guidance increases employee engagement, develops really strong teams that excel to peak performance, which is what we all want when we're in that corporate environment. Nimbly navigating. Ooh, say that 3 times really fast. Complex variables and achieving the big results your organization wants. And I'm so excited to be able to get this out onto my LinkedIn platform where I spent so many 25 years in the corporate environment. Michelle coaches, writes, and delivers effervescent, engaging presentations where real progress is made. She develops practical and compassionate guides to help people find true vision and achieve personal and professional goals. High impact CEO clients, okay, we're talking about the C-suite here, say about Michelle, quote, "Your hindsight gives me great foresight." After transitioning multiple businesses across the country with no disruption to customers. Wow. And another quote, "Just because Michelle made it look easy doesn't mean that it was." And the other is, "We should have hired Michelle years ago. We would have saved millions. We would have made millions."
Mhm.
Now, in this environment that we're in the United States, well, probably worldwide right now, we can certainly use that kind of up-leveling in our revenue as business owners and CEOs. With degrees and certifications in business administration, marketing, and international economics, she has strategically balanced her accolades in the health and wellness industry as a medical exercise specialist. Oh, I didn't even know this. As a medical exercise specialist and international fitness instructor. She also sits on multiple boards of directors and professional affiliations. She's a go-getter. She's a go-getter. And she lives in California with her family, including her Dalmatian Pixel, where her Chamber of Commerce honored her with ambassador status. Oh, that is so cool. So like I said, we're going to get all of her contact information because I know you're going to want to contact Michelle after you see this video. But now we're going to move it over to Michelle, wow, that is just like, you have such an accomplished life. Holy crap. It's crazy.
Thank you.
I feel like I've not done anything in all of my 62 years. You have just been like going like
You
crazy.
know, people have said I have lived many lifetimes, and that doesn't even touch it. I mean, the reality is I really have reinvented myself many times. I've been in different industries. I've been, a CEO, a business owner. I've studied in different parts of the world. One of the things I say is stretch your strengths and strengthen your weaknesses for proper balance. And I'm always looking for those opportunities, even in myself. So I can transfer knowledge from one industry to the next, from a small company to a large company, from a large company to a department within it, or to help an individual career change, develop a career trajectory, or as you pointed out, Pat, where we started together was in the grief space. I had taken a moment from my decades of corporate experience to write the guide I didn't have, Life Worth Living, a practical and compassionate guide to navigating widowhood and sole parenting, because I literally, when my husband passed, I literally was like, well, where's the rule book on this? Where's the blueprint for this? And so I developed it, and that's how you and I connected. And I will always be available to help people remember that there's more to life than just being the one who didn't die, and that you're valued and valuable. And when people are ready, I think the moment that turned it for me, I say, when the pain of the problem is greater than the action required to resolve it, and you're ready to take action, and you don't know what to do or how to do it, that's when this book is like, you're ready for that. And if the tools are not enough, you're welcome to reach out to me. I will always be a widow, no matter chapter 2 and all the rest of life. And I will always offer my hindsight to give you foresight, as that fella said.
Well, I read your book a long time ago, and what just really struck me is you were able to take all of your management knowledge
Right.
and bring it into your grieving home, and what you needed to do as a widow, and really concrete steps that when someone's grieving, it's like you're just like in a fog, and to have someone that can just walk you through, okay, you talk about your advisory board and different things like that. And it's just struck me because I understand the grief space deeply because that's what I work in, but I also was a corporate executive. So I just saw how beautifully that your knowledge of managing and leading you brought right home after your husband died. So
Well,
beautiful.
thank you for that. I mean, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier, that when I gain a skill, then I can transition that in a new environment. So project managing and prioritizing what needs to happen to rebuild a full and happy life on my own terms was the goal. And then one of my great high school buddies who I used to go running with went out for a run, had a heart attack, and died. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what to do. When in reality, I had to realize, yes, I do know what to do. So I went to his widow and said, this is never going to be okay. I'm going to hold your hand and walk this journey with you. Let's project manage this thing. So again, something I understood. And that's why it's the practical and compassionate guide. And of course, in that situation, all of the mourners in the living room were like, phew, somebody who knows what they're doing is taking the lead. And that being a leader has always come naturally to me. And making sure that everything is addressed appropriately. Do I pay attention to the big picture and to the details? Yes. And one of my It's funny because, again, all of these things meld together. So I bring all of that robust life experience when I'm working with my clients. And one of the famed interview questions that I used to ask people, and some people would like not ask why I asked it. And they would just be like, wow, that was a crazy interview. And I learned more about myself than I knew. And my interview question was really just that. Can you pay attention to the big picture and to the details at the same time? I can't expect people to understand the business that I'm hiring them for. And for them to tell me something in their space of what they've done previously is great, but let's go to a common ground. And one of my interview questions, my famous one, if you were going to throw a party, what kind of party would you like to throw, and how are you going to go about throwing it? And of course, at first it's like, am I in an interview? Shouldn't I tell you top 10 skills and my accomplishments and this and that? And so I've suddenly given them a chance to relax and talk about something they know. And it did backfire once, because there was one candidate who said she doesn't like parties and she doesn't like people. And so I thought that in that role she was applying for, in a customer facing situation, I thought, let's find a better fit for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, having been an executive and having interviewed many people for jobs and sat across the table and in these team interviews, that would be a beautiful one, because it's not, we don't just take our hats off of one role in our life. And I've always said to all of the people who worked with me, I know that you can't just drop everything at the doorstep of the building or keep it in the elevator. I know that all this comes with you. So what a beautiful way to interview someone and just like, yeah. I mean, I was thinking, oh, throwing a party, huh? Well, and so I'm already thinking, well, how would I answer that? Or thinking of my husband, who would say, I'm not throwing no damn party. What are you, crazy?
Right. So we gave her a role that was not customer facing. We actually still hired her because she was very talented.
Yeah.
But we found a better fit. So it reminds me, like right now, one of the big things that I'm working on with customers is psychological safety. As you're saying, we do bring our values into the workplace with us. But in this day and age, and I'm referring now to all the tips and tools and ideas in the new management blueprint. And the idea in this book is to spark talent to develop, to ignite winning teams and create value. And if I can move the bar, even on this engagement, how can I teach someone something? How can we make progress on every interaction? That's going to do it in and of itself. But what I realized was, even while I was working through the grief space, people were really reaching out from a long time in my history to connect with me, and say thank you. And this is where I realized this needs to be where my next big impact in the world should focus. And that is where it had been all along, because people were reaching out to me and they were saying, hey, Michelle, I want to thank you for helping me figure out what I wanted to do in the interview. And I had some other secret interview questions that would help people uncover those things, as well as the talents that they have and the dedication to developing their own career. And they would say, thank you for helping me figure out what I wanted to do, and that you hired me anyway. I mean, that's their own perception of mine, because I found the right fit. And then you gave me the skills I needed while we were working together to be promoted, to promote myself, to learn the systems, the technology, the internal customers, so working within departments and interdepartmentally, and then managing up, to really understand how a business can be successful and effective in every effort and every touch point we're making, and how to not be overly sensitive to constructive criticism, but actually receive it as a way to hone that success. And I mean, I can Dozens of people were reaching out to me to say, because I had those skills, I'm now in my dream job. And one fellow in particular that actually like sparked me writing this book, his dream job was not the job I hired him for, but he did need all the skills to get that job. And he is happy as could be as the principal of a junior high. And I hired him in a customer relationship role. So there's another woman who I'm working with, and she and I had a relationship. I had hired her decades ago, and she just got recognized as being the only manager in her company who's ever had a team that's hit every single goal. And I'm
Wow.
like, why do they have goals like that and not the support to actually achieve and exceed those goals? So she and I, connect, and she's like, all right, we've hit 100% time after time. How are we going to exceed them? And so we're developing strategies to continue to hone her team's skills so that, as you were saying, we all bring value in and our value system into the workplace. How do you align your personal motivations with that of the department's goals, with that of the company's goals? And when you've got that done, it makes success inevitable. And it's super easy as long as you can maintain that alignment. And what I was pointing out was there's like 5 things that companies are having the biggest challenges with right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Or what are some of those biggest challenges, especially in today's business environment? Oh, there's so much going on with COVID and the politics and everything that we have going on.
So if you want me to tell you what the 5 big things that companies are making mistake after mistake, I mean, I heard it this morning. Oh my God. And to me, it's so obvious and it's so simple, but I also have that corporate experience and a bird's eye view. And if you're the HR manager and you're, you know, you're trying to figure out, how do I support my staff? How is this going to work? And you've got a training budget, but you don't even know who should I be hiring. And then you're being asked, number one, to do more with less. 10, 20 years ago, we were being asked to do more with less. This is on a whole new level. So how do you do more with even less than we had before? Number 2, if you are put in a position, and I'm speaking to an HR manager at this point, where you have to do layoffs. And how do you determine those layoff strategies? So when I work with clients and they invite me in to help determine the layoff strategy, it's more than just, well, let's just cut out the big numbers or duplicate numbers of salaries, because you really need to dig a little deeper to see who is going to be left to lead the charge. Mm-hmm. And that then makes it's a little bit different of a portfolio that you're keeping to make sure that your business still maintains its goals. Then if that's the case, oftentimes people will be promoted. So this is number 3, from individual contributors to first-time managers. And if you've got a first-time manager who doesn't have a role model any longer, and then they're being asked to work remotely, you're asking a lot. Number 4 follows suit, and that's lack of engagement. Because what is happening when I've just created a scenario for you. We need to do more with less. We have reduced our staff. We have first-time managers and a first-time environment, and people are now challenged with this work-life balance that's happening in the same place, in their living room, with their spouses or multi-generations and their kids or their roommates and their kids who they now need to homeschool, and the cute pets who are like, you're home, let's play, and all the food in the kitchen and the worry and the uncertainty. and the overwhelm of getting your projects in on time while you're concerned, how do I keep my family safe? And so this is where this psychological safety comes in. That's the big thing, because it's like, who in your company can support your management team to be the leaders they need to be, to clear away these worries and concerns so that people can have the structure and be as creative as they need to be, and to feel confident that they can do the work. And then it's aligning, as I was saying, aligning all the efforts that everyone's doing. So you've got to make it really clear what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done.
Mhm.
And putting that support system in place actually can be what determines success or failure.
Wow, I'm listening to you. Sorry to interrupt, but it's like, holy smokes. So let me tell you the scenario that we have going on
Yeah,
in
bring
this
it.
home. You know that it's a multi-generational home, but everything that you're saying, number one is I've been there. I've had to make decisions about layoffs. I've had to go lean at times, all those things when I was an executive in a mid-size insurance company. And we had to do all of that stuff during different times. And it was excruciating to go through that. And you were so right that, trying to figure out who's going to stay and who do you have to go and how do you do it with honor and love and support those that are leaving. But yes, then all of a sudden you have people that they didn't sign up immediately to be these first time managers. And I know, because that was kind of my passion, is developing new leadership, but it's overwhelming. But even in my home, when you're talking about the safety, so right now as we speak, you and I'm down in the lower level of this multi-generational home. You and I are having a Zoom call. I'm doing my personal business, so I'm cool, I'm safe, because this is my gig, right? But my daughter-in-law is working upstairs, and she's working from the dining room table on Zoom. She is a consultant with a large consulting firm. So she's working with her clients there, right? My 16-month-old granddaughter is being cared for by the other granny nanny who lives in the home because she has a really terrible cold. And so she hasn't gotten back to daycare because everybody was laid off for a while there and the income wasn't coming in. And then my son, who works for an airlines, is actually in the training space, is in the office that they have doing his and it's like, this morning I went up there and I'm like, this is just like so crazyville, because everybody's trying to find and vying for the space. Like, where can I get on this Zoom call or that Zoom call? And where can I have the quiet? And oh my gosh, who's going to take the baby out of the house because she can, be a little loud at times. And the dogs are barking, and and then I have my 96-year-old, but it's like the safety. And wow. So you're bringing a whole perspective, bringing that to the leadership, because frankly, when I was a leader, this was the mentality. So this was before COVID and Zoom calls and all that. I had a department of nurses where they all worked from their home. We needed them in their communities. So we went virtual, telephonic nurses a long time ago. But for everybody else, it was like, we need them here because we got to be kind of seeing what they're doing. And, some people just don't work well from home. And so we had we kind of boxed people in, versus, really allowing, like you're saying, to really assess them and give them the tools and the skills and allowing them to grow and develop. And I just think, wow, if I had someone like you where I could say, Michelle, can you come into my company? Because I got enough, excuse my French, SHIT going on here with all the other stuff going on. I'm just imagining being an executive today, leading an organization today and going, holy crap, I got to figure out how are we going to keep paying the bills? How are we going to get new business, all of that kind of stuff. And then you're telling me that I have to be thinking about each of these individuals. I don't know that I can do it all, but I could call someone like you and say, hey, Michelle, this seems like this is your wheelhouse. You've got a lot of energy for this, So is that something that you would do, is come in and if I called you and said, help, SOS, come and help me. You could come in and actually help in the organization itself. So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, okay. So I actually do have a program that is specific to what you're talking about. So if you want me to tell you about a situation where I can come in and literally help both professionally and personally, because I have this previous experience, I can tell you how I can help so that the HR people, and I work within the professional guidelines of that business, because each organization has their own culture and expectations. And I mean, I'm a consummate professional. So that what happens, I'll tell you, is that I can actually help the business owners and the C-suite employees and the HR people focus on their zone, on your zone of genius. And while you're focusing on your zone of genius, I'm going to reduce the overwhelm, reduce the stress, and also give you more time to do what you love to do, what you're passionate about, and increase your income. How am I going to do that? I'll tell you. I'm going to do that by working with your managers to develop high-performing teams that are in alignment with meeting the mission and vision of the goals of the company, no matter what benchmark you set in front of them. And there have been situations where, like, the quota has been increased 33% and we have 3 more business days left. We had to get super creative really fast to hit that number. And I'm not asking for the unrealistic, but there are times when it's like, well, we need to increase our client base by 200%. And I'm like, give me a little think tank time. I gotcha. Whatever it is, we can make that happen so that the health of the company remains, therefore the health of the employees remain, and it makes success inevitable, which is my little tagline. And that's how I come in as a strategic management consultant. I'll give you an example. There's this amazingly brilliant Harvard grad, and she has a company. She's got 2 freestanding medical clinics. And, we had connected, and it didn't take me much to say, it's really hard to do business with you. And, she's on top of her game. And did I mention very, very intelligent woman? Mm-hmm. And so, she was satisfied with where she was at in her business, and that was fine. But sometimes businesses like to wait. They like to wait until the crisis is critical. And that's exactly what she did. And she went ahead and she was like, it became such a pivotal moment in her business that she had to decide whether she was going to shut her doors or figure out what to do to thrive. So she's waiting until the very last moment. Like, she's looking at her balance sheet and it's like, it's a swan song here. So she reached out to me again and she's like, yeah, remember you said that it's hard for prospects to do business with us. And I'm like, mm-hmm. She said, that's not why I'm calling you. I said, okay. Why? What can I do for you? She says, my turnover is high. I keep losing staff members and I can't understand why. I said, okay. So she hired me, and I conducted interviews with her employees, and boy, I learned everything I needed to know very quickly, because I can build trust with them. Something that you all know this. What you would say with the owner of your company in the room is very different than what you would say to a third party. So I could actually discover what was happening. And It was actually some really simple changes we needed to make, but they were critical changes that needed to be made, and they were never going to be reported up. So if you have a feeling in your company that people are talking with themselves instead of the management, that's a signal to go, there could be something that's the seed of something that could go very, very wrong. So I did all my research with her staff. I figured out the challenges. And in addition to making the appropriate changes, which then reduced her turnover to less than 2%, that's my magic number every
Wow.
time. If you, as long as you don't consider promotions within the organization, because as far as I'm concerned, those are a star on my wall, that now you've got more talent that understands your business even better, that's being recognized and being promoted, then less than 2. And that's been consistent throughout my entire career. So I'm digging that number. And the reason that is because I find out what people really, really are desiring, and we can make that work. But that requires some serious communication and trust and a safe space that there are not negative consequences if they're going to be honest. It requires communication. I mean, in this day and age, what are the tips and tricks and tools to maintain support? Oh my God, what I heard this morning was really like vital staff saying they feel like cheap labor. And what do you do when that's the case? I mean, you need to create these huddles pre and post shift if you can afford that time frame. You need to create communications that are virtual. Explain to someone how to conduct a virtual meeting that really offers an open forum. So if there's a question that people don't really want to ask their manager in public, because they really organically in a meeting, they would have just said, hey, so is this what you want us to do? And they would have gotten a head nod and then gone forward. So those are the organic, non-project related conversations are totally missing in a virtual world. But these are the kinds of things that we quickly and easily implemented for this woman's company. I shared an exercise with her. It's one of my favorites that I just, depending on the situation, I'm going to come up with a visual. I gave her a ball of yarn, and she stood, this is when we could actually meet together. I'd have to do it virtually now. And she stood in front of all of her employees that work for her. And I said, this was my own objective, right? I said, how does a prospect even know about your business? And she said, oh, they go to the website. I said, who in this company, works on the website? No one raised their hand.
Wow.
I'm like, well, who's even looked at the website? And somebody was like, well, I saw it. I'm like, throw the ball of yarn to her, but keep your end. So that woman had the ball of yarn in her hand. And I said, is there any way they can be converted to become a customer on the website? They're like, no. I'm like, okay. So, what can we do now? What can they get? Well, they can get the phone number. I said, okay, so that puts the responsibility back in the prospect's hand. Hold your end of the yarn. So I said, okay, during business hours, you remember to make the phone call. You call, who answers the phone? Every single person in the company raised their hand. I'm like, oh my God. Can you imagine if you were busy in 6 layers of math or writing some report or helping a client or something, and suddenly the phone rings, you'd be like, ugh. Am I the one who has to break concentration to pick it up? Mm-hmm. So it was like, choose one person, throw the ball of yarn. And literally what happened in this exercise was that every single person in the organization had a piece of this string before the prospect could become a client. And this was a very real life visual way of discussing the cycle of service from the customer's perspective. Super easy. Where can you make the moment of truth on every single touch point, wherever that yarn met a person? And those are the magic moments. So we streamlined that entire process. I, of course, knew how it was going to go. So I had my slide deck already set up with the answers, but I needed them to buy into it and come to their own solutions. And they included a couple things I hadn't thought of, so that was a good technique, because they're the ones doing the work. And so we streamlined the entire process. So production operation management, process improvement, reduce the redundancy, which automatically increases the profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
And so there goes some revenue, up, up, up. And people enjoyed their job more because every time the phone rang, they knew that it was a one-stop shop and that client was going to be cared for and they can focus on their piece of the work. So just for fun, we played with some numbers of had she connected with me when we first had that conversation. And boy, I got to tell you, she's the one who said, if we had hired Michelle sooner, we wouldn't have lost millions of dollars and we would have made millions of dollars. And it's
I bet she grabbed her little wastebasket and was ready to throw up in it when you started taking a look at the real numbers, like, oh my gosh, but yeah,
right.
hindsight's always 2020.
Right.
Wow, amazing.
I mean, that's just one little example of how do you reach out to somebody who's got the experience and the expertise to see this where you can't because you're overwhelmed and there's
oh yeah, you can't see the forest through the trees, and all I have is visual of this knotted mess of chaotic yarn going all over the place, just totally. And we used to call it in my organization, I had a most awesome project manager gal who worked with me, and she was my right hand. Susan was so good, but we'd play the game. And so that's what we called it. We're going to play the game. We'd all huddle in and we would play the game and watch the little pieces of the game being played out. So beautiful, because I'm sure that visual is just like extraordinary. So Michelle,
mm-hmm.
I have a question, and it wasn't on one of the lists that you sent me. So
okay. Bring it. I like it.
Bring it on. So I think I know the answer to this. I know what my answer would be to this, but there are consultants all over the place. Like I said, my daughter-in-law is a consultant. These big consulting firms are all over the place. Crazy. Large organizations, mid-sized organizations, small organizations are hiring all these consultants, right? Sometimes they'll have like 5, 6 different consulting firms like working right next to each other, right? But what sets you apart? You specifically apart from all those bazillion other consultants that are out there? What sets you apart, and why should these organizations hire you?
Right. So what you just described was a brilliant example of how these companies have gotten so large, and the only way to create a service is to create a standardized recipe, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that. That's all they have to give you. So when we come in, we're going to solve X, Y, and Z. But if your problems and your challenges in your company are A, B, C, D through X, you'll get X solved. But they solve X, Y, Z, and this is how they do it, and they are experts at that. So if your challenges do not exactly meet these cookie cutter solutions, that's when you know it's time to hire somebody like me who's got the flexibility, the expertise, and who's nimble enough to take the experience from one transition or one industry and use it as an analog example to another, to come in and customize specifically to what you're challenging and what you're facing today. My book, The New Management Blueprint, was literally one of the first documents that came out in print available to the world on how to work with remote teams, how to work in changing environments. Because I was writing this during the whole coronavirus situation, I mean, there's a comment in there. There's a piece on professional etiquette. which I was invited into one of the largest advertising agencies in the world to talk about professional etiquette because the culture had veered off and the senior leadership team didn't even know how to pull it back into alignment. So they hired me to do that for them. But in the process, it was like, we talk about make eye contact, shake hands. And it's like, of course, I started there. I'm like, wait, shaking hands is no longer a thing of the present or the future.
Mhm.
So, how do you address the Queen of England? How do you do? And the Dalai Lama, I think, puts hands together and raises them up. That might be the new way. Through virtual, meetings, there are ceremonies that we do to connect with one another, but it may never be shaking hands again. So that's out on the professional etiquette front. So it's being able to nimbly navigate, I think was what you're laughing at, what's happening in the world to adjust that quickly. And when you're hiring a really established organization, as you were pointing out, sometimes you need more than one of these huge firms side by side so that you might get what you actually need. But then they don't necessarily have the implementation program and accountability partners and the leverage partners to really ensure that what needs to be in place is plausible as well as possible. So one of the magic things that I can bring in, and it's really not magic at all, is that differentiates me from anyone else, is one that safe space that I can build trust one-on-one with teams, with departments, I can speak senior management speak, I can speak somebody who's feeling, who can actually vocalize to me, I'm feeling like cheap labor. And I can actually make a resolution all the way up from that. I go into companies and uncover the value that they may never have seen.
Mhm.
Quick example of that, I was working with an order processing team. This is a group who, the fact that comment came up this morning, I don't have to keep repeating it, but feeling like cheap labor was like, ouch. How do you get engagement from that person? How do you get 120% from that person who's not feeling recognized and feels like they actually have their morals are out of alignment by doing the work that's being asked of them, and at what risk? So, I'm going to be working with that. But here was this order processing team. And what I saw very quickly was a group of people who had deep product knowledge, and they spoke with the customers like they were their friends. And there were a couple things that happened, because it's like, wow, you guys are amazing. Does anybody really realize the treasure we have right here? And I can find that everywhere. So I was working with the product development team, and they were saying how hard it is to actually reach the customer through all the gatekeepers to find out how they're using their product and what product they should develop next to, continue serving that customer. And I'm like, really? What is the hardest question you need answered? And give me 4 hours. And I brought it to the order processing team. The customers are calling order processing. This is easy. These were the hardest people product development was trying to reach. So I just asked, hey, any chance, if you get the right market, can you ask this question? Bam, in 4 hours, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of research. And I'm like, what would you like to know next? So huge, company revenue, cost savings, plus it built relationship that, right there, again, moment of truth. And here was another one. The sales team was like, oh my God, we're not meeting our revenue goals. What are we going to do? And I'm like, can my team in order processing help? No, your team doesn't know how to sell. I said, okay, but would it be okay if we did? Yeah, oh yeah, if you could, bring in the revenue. So I talked to the team and I said, hey, you guys, do you want to learn about sales? Absolutely not. No way. Under no circumstances, we will not do sales. Okay. But would you be willing to offer a product related to the one that they're purchasing already that we already have? Oh, and it would help them. Yeah, yeah. We could totally do that. We could help our customer. Okay, we'll just do that. Hi, cross-selling. And if the customers are purchasing something and it's almost to a quantity discount, would you be willing to just let them know that they're going to get a discount on their order if they bought like 3 more? Oh, we could just tell them. I said, okay. I'm like, oh, that's upselling. So I said, just do that. Just help your friends. And we had an incremental increase of $1 million that year.
Wow.
Year over year, at least $1 million for 11 years that I worked with that business. Okay, that company paid for itself. And I talk about creating a department that covers its own expenses in that kind of way, so that you no longer have cost centers, you have value makers. Those are a couple of ways that would set me apart from hiring a huge consulting firm.
Well, and this is what I see is you say light the spark, but I believe that you see the spark. You see the spark in every one of these people. And so you're just creating the way for it to illuminate even larger.
I love
Right?
it. Yep,
Right?
absolutely true.
Because it's there. It's within every one of these people who are working there. There is that spark. But it's just finding, okay, how do we open it up and create a space where there's air getting to it, and it's just like it's getting bigger and brighter and more wonderful. So that's where I was thinking that's what you bring, because it's all about people orientation and caring, truly caring and listening and all of that, which I just love, because that was the leader I always aspired to be. And I think I did a pretty good job of it when I was in there, but you're just like totally singing my song, because it's just like, that's what we need to do. No leader is going to be able to create the results. I always said, the folks that work with me, they don't work for me. They work with me. We're a team. We're a big team. Team was very much my whole, from raised on pablum with that. But I said that they make me look good. I need to be there to protect them. I need to make sure that I'm their voice at the corporate table, at the executive level, but they're the ones that are doing this. So when we were getting ready to, we were purchased, and then there was new leadership coming in, and I was in the level of executive leadership where it was probably, we were, there was a group of us that it was redundancy. Do we really need to have that level? And so we all were brought in to basically get ourselves out of our jobs, and but we were all committed to do it because it was the right thing for the company.
Right.
But I said to my new leader, my new C-level leader, and I said, I could be hit by a bus, I could win a lottery, anything could happen, but I'm going to guarantee you that nothing's going to skip a beat in this department, because these people are the ones that are doing it. It's not me.
Right.
And we're going on 6 years since I've left. They're doing just fabulously well. And it allowed them all then to have the ability to step into leadership roles and bring their spark even greater. So I just really, I am so appreciative. I didn't know all this about you. I mean, we've touched base. So this is what's really cool, because you just jazz me up, and that's your energy. Michelle she's a magic maker, there is, you have such energy, and that's energy begets energy. We know that energy begets energy. So the energy that you bring into an organization, as becoming a part of their organization. It may be a consultant role, but you're actually stepping in and getting into the weeds and really listening and discerning, having great discernment about what's going on here. And I just love it. And the results speak for themselves. So gosh, So I'm going to ask you for just one quick, if you could tell the audience one last thing, what would it be?
One most important thing is this: you have one precious life. And it's really up to you to create the vision of the legacy you would like to leave in your life and how you'd like to enjoy it all along the way. And once you've got that in place, you can figure out the incremental steps to achieve that vision, to step into who you are becoming, rather than getting stuck in who you might be at the moment that could be feeling overwhelmed, overworked, like cheap labor sometimes, that we're busy taking care of everyone and everything, and who is taking care of us, which then becomes a point where we feel disconnected or alone. We don't know how to ask the questions or create an advisory board of our own, which I have a webinar I'm doing tomorrow. If anybody wants to join me, I'll tell you how to do that. But you don't want to lose that luster or that passion of living your one full and precious life. And so making sure that you have a vision to follow, which then makes decision making so simple, that you know that you're in alignment with your true and authentic value system and who you are and who you are becoming. That would be the gift you would give to any organization. That's the gift that you give to every relationship you have. And it's certainly the gift that you give to yourself.
That is so beautiful. Okay, so just real quick, talk about, give them how they can catch you at the webinar tomorrow.
Okay, so tomorrow it's going to be at, oh my God, it's going to be at noon tomorrow, Pacific time. And the best way to get connected would be to reach out to me at my email address, lightthesparklady@gmail.com, lightthesparklady@gmail.com. And you're welcome to connect with me. I'd be happy to connect you with this amazing webinar. I'm talking about how to build resilience by creating an advisory board who you can access for all the information that you might not know right now. You know, big companies have boards of directors. Why don't you? So here's how to create your own advisory board. And if you just email me, lightthesparklady@gmail.com, I'll connect you with that, and I'd be happy to build a relationship with you. My big question is this: how can I help you succeed?
I love it. I love it. Oh, I feel so honored to have been on this side of the interview. Michelle has interviewed me in the past. It's kind of cool because we're able to, this is what the world is about, is let's share of each other. And so I'm just really excited. So I'm going to work on getting this video taken care of so we can get it out on the waves, hopefully even this evening. So if you want to just hang on, Michelle, I'm going to say so long to everybody.
Thank you, Pat.